Hey everybody, so today's video is going to be a little bit different for us. We're going to do some reveneering on a lane cedar chest, but what is going to be a little bit different today is we're not really going to reveneer it. We are going to faux paint it, so also known as like faux bois. I went through my veneer stacks and my piles, and I tried to find this veneer. So this is what we need to match. Okay, so this is what we need to match, and I don't seem to have it. I don't have anything actually even remotely close. So I've decided that I'm not going to use veneer. We could go ahead and try and order it. We could try and find it. I really don't know what kind of veneer this is. And on a client job like this, we have a budget, and we can only put so much time into it. So until I go and find this veneer, figure out what this even is, get it ordered, that expense and stuff, it just doesn't really make fiscal sense because we have a budget and it's not really all that high. So now what's going on in the cedar chest is the whole front on the bottom is all chipping and peeling, and it's actually very common with lane cedar chests. This happens all the time. So I've done this exact job before, exactly like this. I've also replaced the veneer on jobs where the budget, allowed for that. I've done this exact thing before though, and so I know exactly what we're going to go ahead and do. So I've decided that on this job, this is how we're going to do it, and we'll do a video because this is a great little technique. It's really easy, especially on these lane cedar chests with this type of veneer. It's actually a very simple veneer to hand paint. So I'm not really all that artistic. So if I can do it, you can do it. Trust me, I have faith in you. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and jump right into this. So without further ado, let's get paint. It's going to be fun. So what I'm doing here is I'm beginning my my graining by doing some base grain lines, and I'm using this gel stain from Minwax in coffee color, and it's just a gel stain. You can use other brands. I picked Minwax because it's it's readily available at the hardware stores, but you can go ahead and use General Finishes or really whatever kind of gel stain. And now I'm sort of feathering over this gel stain with a badger hair brush, and that is going to soften up my grain lines a little bit so that they're not so harsh and they don't look so hand painted. So now the artist brush that I'm using is nothing special, it's just a standard artist brush I picked up at Michael's, and you can use any number of different types of artist brushes here. And I'm trying to recreate, if you see in the upper left hand corner, this is the veneer that I'm painting that I actually took off of the piece with the original finish on it. So I'm gonna paint these base grain lines in, so these real stark, harsh grain lines that you're seeing on that veneer. Those are what I'm going to start out by applying. And I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a pattern. I'm going to try to sort of mix it up a little bit. I don't want it to look real like a pattern. So, I'm just having a little bit of fun and being creative and kind of making my own little thing here, my own little style, but basing it somewhat off of the original veneer. So I'm using Minwax gel stain, and the reason that I'm using gel stain is because it's heavy bodied and it has a lot of colorant in it, so it works really good in a situation like this because it stays wet on the brush for a while, so that we can just kind of continue to paint our grain lines. Now if I was just using like a regular oil-based stain, it doesn't have enough color in it, and so this is just a really good product to use for painting grain lines like this. So I'm just working here from the right to the left and making my way down. I started, I had to paint the whole front bottom rail here because I peeled all of the veneer off because it was just all shot. So fortunately, I don't have to draw straight lines here because I'm pretty terrible at drawing straight lines anyway. So this is sort of like right in my wheelhouse. So this is just sort of, fun because it's like art class, right? So, like I'm just having a good time doing this. the time just flies by. Here I'm going to use, the badger hair brush again, and just soften those lines up a little bit. And you do heavier lines, some thinner lines. Now I'm going to go in and do some light graining lines. So now I'm going to fill in some of the voids, with smaller little graining lines. I'm not going to go crazy with this because I'm not like doing a Picasso here, right? This is, so I already know how this is all going to work out because I've done this before. So I know that once I do my shading and my glazing and my coloring over top of this, this work that I'm doing right here is going to sort of fade. So it's not going to stand out like it does right now, right? So we're also on a budget on a job like this. This is a client job. So we have a time frame and amount of money that we're going to get paid for this. And it doesn't really matter how much time I put into it. I'm just going to get paid the same amount. So, with that in mind, I'm not gonna go overboard here with my, artistic impressions. But still, we're gonna make this look pretty amazing to a point where nobody standing there looking at it is gonna know any better. Now, if you're doing this for fun and it's not a client job, I mean, you can just, really take some pride in it and, go crazy. So once I get all of my grain lines in, now I'm going to use some Mohawk clear lacquer. It's pre-catalyzed lacquer in an aerosol can. And I'm going to spray this whole rail. And what this is doing, this is locking in all of my graining. So once I spray it good, put a couple coats on, my graining is then locked in. I'm going to let that dry, and now I can go to the next stage, which is going to be glazing, which is going to start giving me some color. So I needed to lock that all in, all that graining line in before I go ahead and apply this color, because I didn't want to wipe any of this color off, because I'm now using an oil-based stain. So this is a General Finishes oil-based wood stain, and I'm using a couple different colors here. And the first one was mahogany, this one is spiced walnut, and I'm just using a chip brush and applying some of the stain, and this is what we're going to start brushing out. And once we start brushing this out, it's going to start giving us our actual color. So I used a few different chip brushes here. I used one each for the different colors, and now I'm using a dry one with no stain on it at all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start feathering the colors out. So I'm just going to work my way down and just sort of blend them and feather them, and sort of blend the two colors together and feather it all out, and then start dry brushing it. So as I feather this out, I'm starting to get the wood tone basically that I want. And as you can see, we're starting to, the grain lines are starting to fade, right? Because I'm starting to get some opaqueness over top of them with the, the wood stain. So I'm starting to get the tones that I want and some of the color there that I want. Still got a little bit of a ways to go yet. So we're going to come in here next and start making it a little bit more authentic looking. And by doing that, I'm going to start removing some of this stain systematically. I'm going to wipe some of it off with a dry absorbent white cloth, and I'm going to do it in streaks, and I'm going to just continue to feather it out. I don't want it all to be like a uniform color straight down. I want there to be highlights, some darks and some lights, and I want there to be a couple different color tones, and that's why we used a couple different stains. So as I remove some of this, I'm going to go back with my brush then and start sort of feather in those areas where I wiped the finish off, the stain off. Now I'm going to take some of the stain that's on the brush and sort of some of it that's floating on top of the wood there, and disperse it a little bit, and start to spread it out a little bit. I'm going to that'll give me a little bit of color over top of the areas that I just wiped off. Then I'll take the badger hair brush again, and again sort of just feather it all out and soften everything up. So really, this part of it is just a repetitive process, and you just tinker with it and play around with it really until you start to get the look that you want. You can take some off, you can put some back on, you could even paint some more lines in if you found that you didn't really like the way it looked, right? So it's very expressive and open to interpretation. So here I have a gray Scotch-Brite pad, which is the gray or the finer grit of the Scotch-Brite pads. And now I'm going over some of these spots, and I'm picking areas between grain lines. So I'm being very specific. If you look at what I'm doing here, I'm going between some of my grain lines, and I'm picking out a pattern. And now I'm sort of rubbing off the colorant in those specific spots to give those parts of the grain pattern a lighter texture. So yeah, this is really the stage where it starts to come together and look the way that I wanted it to look, right? So I'm starting to get the darks and the lights, the highs and the lows. It's starting to look a little bit more like the wood that I removed prior. And we'll show you a picture as we get into this, in a little bit. I'll show you a picture of the wood grain and what it looked like before and how it looks now. So now we're just going to kind of do our final feathering with the badger hair brush and soften it all up one more time. I'm going to take some clear lacquer again, and I'm now going to lock in that glaze. And that sort of brightens it all up too, and you really start now to get a look at and a feel for what it is we're creating. Once I do that and I lock that in, now I'm going to take it into the spray room and give the whole piece a good shot with the lacquer. So we're using pre-catalyzed lacquer. Shooting out of the gun here, and I'm just going to give the whole piece a good coat of finish. And once we give it all a good coat of finish, we'll really start to be able to see exactly what it was we created and how it looks, and whether or not there's going to be any more work that we're going to want to do to it. So now, we refinish furniture, so we spray, all our finishes on stuff. But of course, you can do this a lot of different ways depending on, what your skill levels and abilities are. You don't need to spray with lacquer, or you could spray with lacquer and just use the aerosol can like I did on the bottom there. So take a few cans, but a can of aerosol is only $10. It's, you use a few cans of it, but all in all, it's probably well worth it, and it gives a pretty good quality finish for smaller jobs like this, as opposed to, I guess putting the money into spray equipment. So now we did go and apply one more coat after this, and that was a tint coat, which I do have in other videos, but I forgot to take a video of it on this one. But we throw add a little bit of colorant into our final coat of lacquer to give it a little bit more depth and a little bit more color than what you're seeing right here. So this is the final product. That's the piece of veneer that we matched. That's the original veneer. And you can see the veneer that we painted on is a pretty good match, especially when you're standing back, a couple feet, not right zoomed up on it. Came out pretty good. We were all super happy with it. It only took a few hours to do. It was a lot of fun. Customer was thrilled, and we stayed within budget. So I think it was a win-win for everybody involved. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you get a chance to do a project like this, I hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a great day. We appreciate you watching the video, and we'll see you in the next one.